We pick up the 5th episode and our last one of the week on Ceres Station. Miller is going to see his partner Havelock, who was looking very good for a man who was impaled through the chest and left face down on a filthy floor when he finally fell off the wall he'd been nailed to. Miller chastises him for not listening. Keeping his head down and his eyes open is what he's supposed to do, and is even more disappointed that the girl from the brothel is there. He's worried this is some kind of romantic thing rather than a post-stabbing gift to his penis, and the idea that Havelock is trying to learn Belter isn't any better. Havelock's idealism and Miller's cynicism collide hard, as Havelock says he doesn't want to take bribes and look the other way, and Miller says he's not the one with a hole through his chest. After this lady likely lured Havelock into an ambush, he adds. That's Miller's take. I don't think that she did, but I don't think I get a vote. Meanwhile, the Tachi is adrift in space, and Holden finally wakes up. Amos still has a hole in his leg. We should probably do something about that. He might need it later. Although probably just to kick Holden in the ass for getting them into this mess if he ever finds out. Yeah, Holden's going to need to hunt down a proctologist to get Amos's boot out of there. After they've finished treating him, Alex fills Holden in. The tumbling adrift is intentional. He's making it look like they're just another chunk of debris so no one feels inclined to come after them. However, there's a message coming in, which means somebody knows they're actually alive, or are very, very determined to get them to extend their car's warranty. After the very brief title card, we cut to Anderson Station 11 years ago. Remember when Miller met Anderson Dawes? Well, he was named after this station. Not because of this, since he looks to be older than 11, but to show the place was important. This guy, whom we'll call Power Dad since he's using this standoff to spend quality time with his kid, picks up to talk to the UN representatives that have been sent. To ask for their surrender, I mean. Well, on that ominous note, why don't we get back to the Tachi? Fred Johnson is the one calling and says that unless their goal is to start a war, they need to contact him so he can help them make this right. Well, they have a problem. The deal was that they were to go to a Martian outpost so they could tell the truth. The problem is that the only ones who know about that deal, besides the 4 of them, are dead. It would be a hell of a gamble for 4 civilians in a Martian warship with a dead Martian officer aboard to head to Mars and explain they made a deal with the dead crew of the Donager. They're going to be seen as terrorists. If they're lucky, they can look forward to a quick death. And if they're unlucky, a far less quick death. Holden thinks they should go with Johnson and Tycho. Naomi says he can't be trusted, and since Amos always does whatever Naomi says, they're stuck. It's a tie, and I guess there's no runoff election in this one. So while the crew of the Tachi decide to sit around until they choke on their own farts, on Ceres, the Belters are crediting Golden Bough, an OPA group, with destroying the Donager, and there's a general atmosphere that anyone working for an Earth company, which Star Helix, the station's police, are, better watch their backs. Or in Havelock's case, his front. The would-be killer is identified by the captain, but it sounds like he already left Ceres. He certainly makes that implication. Well, if he didn't, then he's going to accidentally fall out an airlock onto some bullets. Miller's not there, though. He's still on the Julie Mao thing, following up a lead on the Anubis. His not exactly significant other swings by, surprised that Miller isn't trying to personally hunt down the creep who attacked Havelock. But he's convinced everything going on is somehow connected back to Julie Mao. The Anubis thing came from that data crypt. Its flight path was on there, and what is notable for us is that it departed from Persephone, as in the place that in episode 4 was the site of a mass murder and cover-up. The scopuli is sent to intercept, and then all of a sudden, ships start blowing up. This thing with Julie, it's one part of a massive tapestry, Miller thinks. She thinks this needs to be brought to those higher up the chain, but since the captain doesn't want to listen and he's not sure who to trust, right now he's just going to putter along himself. He can solve this. He has the hat for it, after all. We flash back to Anderson Station, where the UN rep, I think you can glean from Naomi's conversation that it was Fred Johnson, says they will not respond to threats or negotiate with terrorists. Well, there's conflict between Power Dad and some of the others. He thinks it's time to call this quits, but the others want to stand their ground. Then,
What the hell was that?
that's not good. That would be bad on Earth, never mind in the vacuum of space. In the present, Alex puts Lopez in a body bag and activates the cryopreservation system to keep it preserved. As for Naomi, the ship recognizes her as an engineer and is very accommodating. Naturally, that pisses her right off. Amos swings by to ask about Tycho. He's not second-guessing her judgment. He just asks her to explain so he can understand why he is backing her play. She says she doesn't trust people with causes. Causes get people killed. Fair enough. But Amos then asks what the alternative is, and yet hanging out in space forever is not what she wants, so Amos tells Holden to follow the plan and go to Tycho.
With our track record, we'll probably get Tycho blown to smithereens too.
Yeah, you four are like the Pied Piper for gremlins. On Ceres, Miller looks into the guy Julie Mao planted for getting handsy, but is interrupted by Anderson Dawes. As far as Dawes is concerned, the street trash and radical nutjobs, they're not true OPA, which makes sense. These aren't people committed to a cause. These are angry malcontents looking for a way to express their emotions regardless of whether or not it's helpful. Which, in fact, is why the guy who spiked Havelock is in an OPA safe house. See, Anderson Dawes believes that the same way Earthers have Earth as a home, Belters should have Ceres as theirs. Anything else is a distraction from that goal, which is why Dawes offers to let Miller come take this piece of shit off his hands. And all he wants is for Miller to let him know what the investigation into Julie Mao turns up. She was one of his, he explains, so he wants to do right by her. As far as his namesake, Anderson Station, this really doesn't look like there are a lot of great options. Power Dad offers unconditional surrender to the UN, but there's no response. In the present, for our heroes anyway, Alex finally hears about the riots on Ceres because of Holden's accusation.
Well, partner, it's gonna be kinda hard for you to stay anonymous now.
Hey, you've become the face for this riot. Congratulations. Maybe that's the picture they'll use for the postage stamp. Or the wanted poster. Meanwhile, Miller is pursuing the guy that Julie Mao planted on the deck, who says that he flew her around. Said Julie Mao was different than the usual spoiled rich kids coming out as an act of rebellion. She pitched in to help Belters on Callisto, even though she was being exposed to the same carcinogens and would have to take anti-cancer meds the rest of her life. She was a true believer in helping these people. When this guy grabbed her, it wasn't because he was trying to get some sugar. It was because she was going out with some hardcore OPA and he didn't want to see her hurt. Obviously, she didn't feel the same if she introduced his ass to the floor. In the flashback to Anderson Station, the continued refusal to accept unconditional surrender is worrying. I mean, what is left after we give up, do what you like with us, other than just killing them for killing's sake? So Power Dad manages to get a remote transmitter up to explain to the solar system what's going on. That they protested on this mine over the treatment of their children, who have hypoxic brain injury caused by insufficient amounts of oxygen. They only wanted something done about it, medical treatment and a change to conditions. But it got ugly. A manager was accidentally sent out in airlock, which is ironic, I suppose, that the complaint was a shortage of oxygen. Well, the UN Marines blast the station open and all the miners and their kids are sucked out into space, for which Colonel Fred Johnson was nicknamed the Butcher of Anderson Station. In the present, Johnson gives instructions in the message of how to change their transponder so they won't get flagged on their way here. But they're going to need a new name. For the ship, not themselves. I mean, the Fantastic Four is already taken.
Screaming Firehawk.
Nice, very subtle. That's a perfect name for someone trying to maintain a low profile. That is honestly less attention-drawing than a Terminator who calls himself not a Terminator. Holden comes up with Rocinante, Spanish for workhorse, as Amos notes, but also the steed of Don Quixote. Perfect for the guy who tilts at windmills. Back on Ceres, Miller heads to where that data broker used to operate, and after persuading the shopkeep, starts going through the dead guy's stuff. Amos is doing something similar on the Rocinante. Yeah, I don't think that's your cup size. Miller, though, realizes this guy puts information inside of little fake animals, and Julie Mao has a hamster back in her place. Sure enough, there's a data crypt inside. Everything's finally going his way. Everything's coming up roses. Extremely thorny.